commanders. It's me, Colonelstrat, and I'm going to be going into one of my favorite games as a kid. When Rome 2 came out, it was really cool for me. It had a bit of a rocky launch, but as it's evolved, it's really gone to show just how great the whole scene is. Really got me more fascinated on that era in history. It's a really good game, mechanically sound, really fun to see all the battles going on down there. So I hope you guys enjoy this guide here that's going to show you how to basically play Rome 2, and it'll go into all the mechanics. I'll show you some close-ups of battles and how things work. Rome 2 is one of those games where it's very easy to get a grips of, but it's hard to master and get to the ideal strategies for each time. You'll still take a lot of losses in Rome 2, but once you've played it for so long, you'll start to bring something that counters everything. You learn the ins and outs of it. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good for Total War. So if you guys like this one, remember to leave a like down below, maybe a comment, check your sub down there, and hit the notification bell so that you can know whenever I upload again. Without further ado, let's get into this Rome 2 gameplay guide. Now, to start, I'll show you guys the screen for the campaign. Now, there's a lot of different campaigns now with Rome 2. You have the main grand campaign here, all these different cultures to choose from. I'll go through all of them in a minute. You have the Imperator Augustus campaign, which is for the anniversary. I think it was the first anniversary of Rome 2 that they had this. It's got the Eastern Empires, Balkan tribes, the Eastern Empires, these two, Parthia and Armenia, the Balkan tribes, just the Dacia, the Successor Kingdoms with the Egypt, Tannic tribes, and Germanic tribes. It's set a little bit before the main campaign in 41 BC with all these different types of Romes. Now, I think this is when Rome was kind of separated with different people trying to rule it. And then that's the gist of the Imperator Augustus campaign. Empire Divided was the most recent DLC. This was the crisis of the 3rd century, where Rome literally broke into thirds. You had Gallic Rome, you had Palmyra, and you had regular Rome. And it was Emperor Aurelian had to try to keep all this together. So they were all fighting against themselves. You also have some powerful Germanic kingdoms with the Saxons, the Gothic, the Goths, the Marconis again, the Eastern Empires, the Sassanids, and the Armenians, the Alani, and of course the Caledoni, which is actually probably my favorite one to play for this campaign, because you can't play as them in the main campaign. You can only play as the Iceni. It's a nice change from it. But Empire Divided, from what I've played of it, it's a pretty decent campaign. All these campaigns are worth it historically, but most of them, for Rome 2 at least, add something unique to it. So that the divided Roman Empire, you have to compete with all 3 different Roman factions to try to unite Rome. Who's going to lead Rome? The Germanic kingdoms are trying to carve out an empire. The Eastern kingdoms are trying to stay alive. The nomadic tribes are trying to do the same, moving around, and Brits are just kind of doing what they want, what they do best. And then you have Rise of the Republic, which was released pretty early on, and this is way back in the early days of Rome, where they're battling against the Greek states here, and the Gallic tribes, the Italian states of Rome, and there's these guys too, the Italic tribes, the Viti, the Samnites, and then these guys here on Sardinia. It's a lot more small of a campaign, but it does have its merit. And then you have Caesar in Gaul, which was pretty much closed off. Very small campaign, very story-based campaign. Hannibal at the Gates is similar, but the Second Punic War, which is again very historic. If you're a fan of history, you'll like this campaign. Wrath of Sparta, pretty similar to the Peloponnesian War. It's more Greek focused. Yeah, there's a lot of campaigns, but for the sake of this guide, I'm going to just show you Rome. So you can choose from Carthage, Rome, Balkan states, Gallic tribes, Successor Kingdoms, Desert Kingdoms, the Greek states, the Iberian tribes, nomadic tribes, Easterns, Black Sea colonies, Britannic tribes, and Germanic tribes. Now, some of these are DLC, like the Black Sea colonies, but for the sake of this video, I'm just going to choose Rome. So we'll guide into the campaign, and I'll go through the basics for the campaign gameplay, and then we'll go into some battles. So the first thing you'll see is these little icons over here for your cities. These, in the olden days, what we would call expansion. So you can expand a slot. You can also upgrade here. You can have 2 different city types, a civil colonia or garrison one. The garrison one has, of course, better troops, but you don't make as much wealth, and you don't have as much cultural influence or pop growth as you do with a civil one. So I usually have Rome or any of your major cities be a civil one, so that you can make it a beacon, a hub for your whole culture and for your economy. Now, I will eventually expand with the other ones, but as Rome, you start at war with the Etruscans in the north. You want to wipe them out, and then wipe them out here on Corsica. And Rome is probably the easiest to play in the whole game, probably because that's what it's named after. But let's just take a moment to just look at how beautiful this campaign map is. I just, whew. You know, Warhammer is great and all, but I love going back to older Total Wars, Rome 2, Shogun 2, just to show how good the map is. I can never get over it. Even though it's not as detailed as Warhammer 3's is with all the units like moving around and all that, seeing like a historical setting like this is great. It's refreshing to see. I think that's why a lot of people return to these older Total Wars, because you could go back to Empire and Medieval 2 and the graphics are definitely not great, but if you go to Rome 2, Shogun 2, the graphics are still pretty good. Even Attila is pretty good at graphics too. Rome 2's design is really good for its graphics. That's just a little personal thing of mine. Anywho, I'm going to expand this here and show you what we got. So some of these expansion slots do need to be unlocked by some technology, but most of them will be the base ground for what you'll have to upgrade in the future. So if I were to get this public forum, for example, I can expand it into a commercial sector, a slave sector, or a research sector, something like that, to increase my trade, increase my income from slaves. Yes, because slavery is legal here, guys. Whew, I know that's a hot topic. The Romans didn't give a shit. No, sorry to burst your bubble. So if you were to get this consecrated ground, then you could just pick a god. Like right here, you can pick a god to devote this to, like Minerva, Mars, Vulcan, Neptune, Jupiter. They all give different bonuses and they all require food. So what you want to do is you want to keep an eye on this meter here. The amount of settlements you have over here that produce food, you can make more buildings that use it to turn it into profit. Food to profit, profit to soldiers, soldiers to conquer more land to get food. That's the cycle here. So I'm going to build this public forum there. Now I only have a little bit of gold starting out, so I want to be careful. I can actually gain more food by increasing my olives here, which would be good. And then I will take that desecrated ground down once I can upgrade this, because it's better to have all your main buildings in the capital setting so that you can use the outer settlements for food production or for resource production. So that way you don't have to worry about that. Now, this little guy here is a spy. We have certain agents all over that you can recruit: a spy, a champion, or a diplomat. They all have different purposes. Spy, of course, goes and spies. Maybe sabotages some things. Can do a lot to help you gain a foothold. Like, can go over here, we can sabotage the settlement, but we don't have enough cash for it. I usually just use her for eyes and ears. We move her over here, we can get an eye on the enemy. We can see what army we have here. We can even see what units are in it too. So these guys are really useful to have a couple of these guys as you advance to go into enemy territory and just kind of scope things out. You don't even really have to use it to cause any actions, because their actions are more than likely not going to succeed. But to just be able to scout around and reveal the fog of war and reveal what enemy units are in the province, it is essential. So I really recommend having some spies. So then we go to the army screen here. What are all these stats for, I might hear you ask. Now, the stats: melee attack, pretty self-explanatory. That's your chance to hit an enemy. Melee damage is how much damage you're going to do when you hit. Bonus for infantry, if you have it, is a bonus you get attacking infantry troops. Your charge bonus is when you charge in, that charge will be applied on top of your damage. Your melee defense is, of course, your chance to deflect. Armor is how much armor you'll be soaking up, like missiles and stuff like that. Pretty much the same thing that Warhammer has. In the older Total Wars, it was a lot more defined. And then, of course, they have a health stat, which means you can withstand armor, how many hits you can withstand. So you have a basic health stat, how many hits a unit can withstand in there. And then, of course, their morale. They also have some nice abilities, like they have discipline trait, which is really good. They don't suffer a penalty from when their general dies, so that's really good. You want to make sure that you have some basic troops. Like, after you've unlocked a few more technologies, you'll be able to upgrade these troops to legionaries eventually. You just upgrade them through the totem pole and they'll get better and better, especially as they get more XP as well. They'll upgrade their melee attack and defense, a little bit more weapon damage, and maybe get some bonus for his infantry, which is always good to get. And then you have your basic javelins, which are called veletes for the Romans, and then leves. Veletes are pretty good. They still do a decent weapon damage, decent melee defense, so they're not completely useless in the melee. The Hastati themselves do have a spear javelin weapon, so especially when you get up to legionaries, you could just have a whole Doomstack of legionaries and they'll be really, really good. Romans, again, like I said, are probably one of the easiest starter factions, and it makes sense because that is literally the title of the game. So let's go into the technologies next. So you have two branches. You have the military and you have the civil. You need to research one of these basic technologies to unlock them. I usually, for the Romans, go right for the military supply reforms so that we can start getting better military troops. Other nations, you might want to go for civil, but the Romans, you want to get that military technology squared away first so you can conquer, and then once you've gotten your main enemies defeated, then you can maybe focus on civil, get some public works going. Before that, anything that comes to that, you gotta unlock it with supply reforms. So now we're gonna take this guy, we're gonna go engage in a battle. So the Etruscans, we caught them here. This is our basic army screen here. It shows our deployed forces here, their deployed forces here. It shows our stances, any of our bonuses here, our commanders' effects, their commanders' effects, and their stances. And then, of course, our balance of power, which is insanely in our favor. We can also choose what stance we want to take in the auto-resolve, which could increase or decrease our remaining forces. I usually go for a balanced stance, does a good amount, and then I'll take the slaves to get some wealth, which which always helps. You don't want to take too many slaves though, because then you'll get a revolt. Now we go to the upgrades. For the upgrades, they have a huge amount of trees. Rome 2 has a lot of trees to go through. They have the commander tree, the strategist tree, and the warrior tree. They all have a lot of benefits, but the warrior buffs up your mainline units. The strategist buffs up your commander and your army's capabilities, being able to have more replenishment, hire more mercenary, have more cultural assimilation. I mean, we get some upkeep cost reduction. Commander gives you more authority, gives you more experience, gives you more morale. And then a warrior, of course, increases your charge bonus, melee attack, buffs up your troops. So I usually go for warrior first and then commander. All up to you guys, but that's usually what I go for. And then we'll take this city too. And there we go, a good first attack against the Etruscans. And we took Velithari, which will help us a lot. We should wait till next turn to expand because you don't have enough. But what I can show you is the Legion tradition. Now, every Legion, every army will have its own traditions as long as it's not disbanded or gets wiped out. So even though your generals will die of old age and be replaced, you'll still have bonuses from your legions, which for the Romans, I used to go formidable fighters first, accomplished ambushes next, and then whatever pops up after as you get more upgrades. So formidable fighters plus 3% weapon damage inflicted by all army units, which is really good, and it can go up to 6% for melee attack skill and 9% for damage if you upgrade it all the way. So it's a nice thing to build up and keep these armies alive, because even if you replace the units, as long as the army's still alive, it has the bonuses. It's kind of like an army culture that's being funded by you. The same thing goes for Navy. The Navy's pretty close as well, but I usually just use the Navy to try to blockade these guys. Yeah, we just maintain a blockade, and then eventually after we kick these guys out, we'll send those guys over there. That way they can't actually build anything. Now, last few things we gotta look at in the campaign. You can adjust your taxes, you can look at your trade, and check your summary. I usually put my taxes a little lower just so that I can get a little bit more population growth as well as increase my public order, but you don't want to completely remove it. For the faction, this is the dynasty tree, so you can pretty much influence the way your family works. You can secure them a promotion, which will give them more influence. You can marry them so that they'll create more children. I'll even boost up the women too. I'm all for equality. I'll make the women very powerful too. And then of course you have your faction leader here. He'll give birth to a faction heir. You have your politics here with your different houses. You want to appease them. They have different traits like mercantile, thirst for power, hates barbarian, bigot. They have different traits that they'll have to balance them so that they don't try to secede. And they do have different government types. Eventually you can go to an empire, which will be very, very good for research rate overall, loyalty and all that, because most of these parties will be decimated when that happens. Other than that, you do have to look and maintain the politics, or else they might, if their loyalty goes to negative 100, they will rebel. This is where you look for what you can raise, how many armies you have, how many fleets, how many edicts you can pass, how many spies, dignitaries, and champions, your influence, imperium level, and all that. In Rome 2, as you get more powerful, your imperium level goes up, which increases your upkeep costs, increases your corruption, political action costs, and reduces your public order. So it's bad, but you also get a lot of loyalty from political parties, so it more like secures your state, but causes your state to lose a lot of money, give or take. You can see your influence here, see all this stuff. The politics is an intricate part of Rome 2 now. It took a while to get that built in and ironed out, but it works really well now. Now that we've done all that, I'm going to advance through the campaign a little bit, and I'll show you some more technologies, because I gotta get them unlocked. After that, we're going to go and show you some battles, and pretty much wrap up the guide there, Strafan. Alright, now that we've unlocked our supply reforms, we have 3 different trees to go in for our technology. We have management, which pretty much is the basic part of the technology tree that's going to just unlock better units, better buffs. It's really basic. We unlock, better barracks to recruit better units, eventually get to professional soldiery, to be able to get legionary cohorts and evocati and all that, veteran legionaries, all that stuff. Every time you unlock them, you get some nice buffs. It's a nice tree, and of course, it's the main one you're going to want to go through. You're going to want to speed through to professional soldiery. I usually do that immediately. 23 turns in, you'll have professional soldiery, you'll be able to get legionary barracks, you'll be able to get legionary cohorts, evocati cohorts, which are the veteran legionaries, and praetorian guards, which are really good. And then tactics is just, you get tactics fields, training grounds, basic buffs that you get to buff up your troops with their melee attack and all that, buff up your ships. Really good to get this after, as you're trying to buff up your units to get an edge on the enemy. And then finally, we have the siege, which gives you siege works, ability to have blacksmiths to increase your armor levels and weapon levels, which is certain areas that have iron can have these towns that can increase your armor levels and your weapon level to give you more damage and more armor to resist enemy forces better. And then of course, you get better siege engine workshops so you can get siege engines, all that type of stuff. It gets like catapults and trebuchets, stuff like that. That's something that is really worth it in the ancient world. But yeah, management number one, and then I go tactics, and then a little bit of siege as well, just so I can get those ballistae, all those popular Roman inventions. And then goes to civil one to unlock better ways of getting food and getting aqueducts and stuff so that we can better our citizens' lives. All right, now I'm going to show you some battles. We're going to go into this battle against the Etruscans here, and I'll show you a little bit of Rome 2's battle system. Our battle screen's a little bit different from Warhammer, but it's still pretty similar. We have a lot more control of the camera in the battle screen. We can also zoom in pretty close, and we even have this option here called cinematic camera, where we can watch it pretty up close and personal. Really cool for Rome 2 and for other installments that followed it. I like it a lot. It really makes the battles pop. You of course have, your group orders and all that. Pretty standard stuff. You have 2 stances. You double click to go faster, or you can click this button. It'll start running, and you just keep on moving. You move them faster with that. And of course, like I said, the Romans, they all have ammunition as well, so that's always a plus. They also have different formations. They have formation attack. They will maintain formation as they attack, which is really powerful, especially when you need to pull them out of an engagement faster. You can then pull them out. It takes them a lot less longer. You can also get to a testudo, which is a very defensive position. Guard mode, you have different formations here for your organizations. Rome 2 has a lot more formations, and it was the pinnacle of formation-based attacks in this era of Total War. That was really good of Total War to do that. Let's get our velites in position so we can start firing on the enemy. There we go. The missiles are firing. The enemy's locked in. Let's get the missiles firing on the Italian cavalry and all that to get them down. Yeah, there we go. We're cutting them up. Also, the matched combat was something I really liked in Rome 2. I really liked seeing the matched combat. Just look into the thick of combat, and eventually, they do these little animations like that right there. Bloody. It's really, really fun to see. Yeah, we're doing really well. As expected, because these guys are not really good. This is just like a test. They have very light infantry mobs, pelting them with javelins, and then I usually try to form an infantry line and just move them up slowly but surely. If you click and drag, it automatically has them set to run. If they're running, they're going to be firing faster, and they're not going to be really defending themselves as much as if they were stationary or walking. So they do have a bit of a disadvantage at that point. They're still doing good because they have more armor than these guys, so they're going to be able to take less casualties and give more. All right, let's see if we can hit these peltists. And then we can also charge forward. Have the Hastati on that side, charge forward, and then these Hastati go in there to flank them. You have a lot more control of the battlefield, as you can see, compared to later titles. Even though the Warhammer titles do offer a great deal of control, I feel like I actually lose a lot of control over it because of the magic, whereas in this game, you have a lot of control because there's no magic, and you have formations, formation attacks, and all that. You can really keep your army moving, and it can adapt to different situations, which is really cool. Alright, let's charge heavy in there. Of course, you have different ammunition types, like you have hybrid units. This is the first iteration of hybrid units with the Romans having their pelting weapons. Oh my god, but the brutality is just awesome to see as well. Alright, they're falling back. They're trying their best to pick off our Romans with their ammunition, but we're just going to take most of our Hastati and send them towards the center there. We'll have our velites and leves go over here and pelt them, because these are just all skirmish infantry. They're going to be trying to pelt our Hastati. So as soon as we get within range, they're going to be trying to pelt us. So this is another game that if you go to take the victory point, you're going to cause the enemy to retreat. Alright, let's go hit them with our missile troops while they're trying to pelt our melee troops. There. Go ahead, pelt us. I guarantee you we'll get more pelts on you. Oof. Yeah, there we go. Ooh, they're taking it. They're taking all of our pelts now. I do like the banter. That's something really cool about it too. There's the banter between them. It's always refreshing. I used to say all of the Roman quotes and all that during class time. I loved it. It was the best. Yeah, they're going down. They're down. These slingers, oh, they're gone. What about those leve slingers? Yeah, they're gone too. These guys are retreating too. They're wavering. Oh, there they go. And that's a victory. That's pretty much the gist of it. I'm going to show a more intense example during later game, but this is going to be more of a skirmish. But it's just to show how different units can be. So let's go into that one now. And here we are with a bit more of an advanced setup. So late game, you'll have access to a lot more of these types of units like siege onagers and scorpions, things like that, to help the Romans out a whole lot against enemies. Now, when you get up to your cohort levels, it's a lot better to have like a whole bunch of cohorts and just have them be double line. That way, one line attacks and the other line, while they're in melee, is pelting the enemy with missiles, because they all have a missile attack. Pretty much every single thing does. So that's one of the great benefits of the Romans, is that they all have missile attack. That's one good thing about them. Alright, we're going to go up against the Macedonians here. March them forward. We're having our heavy onagers fire at them as well while they're marching. There we go. There's different rounds available too. Right now we're just doing basic pelts, but I could do flaming rounds, which would help a whole lot. Right now we're just flinging rocks at them, which is helpful, but it's not going to do a lot of kills. More for just breaking down walls. But the flaming rounds, oh man, that'll do something. That'll catch people on fire. So it does help. We did get a lot more kills with the flaming rounds than we did with the regular. Oh yes, there we go. Oh, that got a lot of them. As we're getting closer, oh, there's the scorpions firing. Yep, flaming rounds helps out a lot, but I think once they run out of that ammunition, they'll go back to regular. And get back there, get back. So yeah, this right here, we did a lot of damage to them before they even came close to our lines because of the onagers and all that. So you really get to see how insane the artillery pieces are, but you gotta make sure that you keep them alive, because if you don't, then that's a problem. You gotta make sure you keep them nice line. But for Rome 2, the battles are a lot more condensed. They're not all over the place like Warhammer 3 is. So let's move these guys forward just a little bit. No, stop. And then we'll halt the onagers, because they're going to start hitting our guys. And that's alright. We're starting to launch our pilum at the enemy. Yeah, that's what the Romans called it. They called it pilum. Oh, look at all that. Oh my lord, a lot of kills. We haven't even locked in melee combat yet. Our velites aren't even really doing anything. We're just kind of waiting for an attempt. Yeah, let's move in. There we go. We're moving in now. Take them out. Yeah. Oh, yes. I love seeing these little animations. It's really cool to see. And then we're going to move. Oh, get those guys in there. Those avocati in. Those avocati in. Have those velites fire on those guys. Yeah, we're doing really well, as expected, because we're facing pretty mid-tier units. Oh, there we go. Battles turn into such hectic landscapes that it's really, really fun to see. See these guys going at it, these guys going at it, he's jumping on a shield. It's just madness. Pretty accurate to ancient warfare, though. Pretty accurate, I would say. Like, let's get a bird's eye view. Alright. Let's get around them here. Oh, you want to go back. Go back. Oh, these velites have used all their ammunition? Okay, well, let's just get them back in there then. Alright. And we're slowly getting them. We're losing a couple Romans here or there, but we're still getting a lot of them. And again, this has a basic system of swords are good against pikes and all that. Pikes are good against horses. Horses good against swords. There's still that basic counter gameplay in between it all. It can easily be overshadowed by all the great hybrid units and all that, because Roman soldiers, their swordsmen can outclass pretty much anything if they really determine. So that was the battles. And once the enemy retreats, it's pretty much, you know, over. They shatter really quickly, which is realistic, but at the same time, it can be a little, oh man, you don't have the chance to pursue them. I think you do have the chance to pursue them, but at that point, they're kind of retreating, and there's no real reason to, unless you want to just mop them up. Enemy general is dead. Oh, that one right there, that was gruesome. So that's all the battles. That's pretty much all there is to know about it. Let's wrap this up now, ladies and gentlemen. So that was my guide on Rome 2. I hope to make more guides for each of the factions and how you should play them in the campaign, what units are good against other enemy units, what units are all around good, and my compositions for how I play the game in each tier. Because there is still, as you go through, you'll get more tiers of troops. You can get them a lot faster in Rome 2 than you can for Warhammer 3, which is a lot more, you know, structured. There's actually tier numbers and all that, but still is there in Rome 2, even though it's an older game. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. As always, remember to leave a like on the video, comment down below, chuck me a sub if you like what I do, and as always, Strat fans, remember to keep it strategic. Colonel out.